first question really was to just get a little bit of background about yourself and how did you become involved with the esports world?
Yeah, so I'm 49 years old, but I've got a 20-year-old who was born in the year 2000. And I've come from a sport background, and it was really interesting tracking his journey and his youth development around esports. And obviously, the improvements in technology on how you can communicate, at home. Me growing up is, there was one phone line, you couldn't really get hold of your mates, so you didn't. Whereas his ability to communicate via gaming was really interesting to me, and the fact of the difference between esports and gaming. So esports is always human versus human, always games of skill, and you can't pay to enhance your play. And I really like that concept. It's a bit like sports, so it's down to you to be better type thing. Obviously, certain sports you can enhance yourself, like if you've got a better Formula One car than the other guy, but give or take, subject to having the right ping rate. I really enjoyed seeing my son go through this journey, and there were particular titles when they came out made a huge difference to his life. So I had, like, Star Wars was important to me, but when Black Ops 3 came out, which is a significant game, it was the first title I think to do $500 million in the opening weekend. It kind of made me realize not only is it an incredible activity to communicate and socialize and be part of a community, but actually there's a whole commercial world around it as well. And I wasn't a gamer growing up. I was more of a sports player.
And you said you have a sports background. Who have you worked with before?
So I'm still involved in sports. So one of my founding businesses, we run a tennis club and a golf club, a country club. I'm a member at the All England, which obviously is where Wimbledon's played. And I worked at Wembley Stadium for 12 years. I finished there in 2017. So I've come back from a sports background, and my uncle was a double Olympian who's the British record holder for 5,000 meters for 7 years. So I'm a pro sports and I'm pro esports. And in my universe, they're different things, but very complementary.
Your role with the British Esports Association, how did that come about?
So in 2015, I went to the British government to say I'd like to create a national body, and to have the word British in your company name or organisation name, you need authority from the government. So it took me a few months to present myself, plus some other people, to number 10. I actually went to number 10 and met with the head of marketing for the UK, Conrad, an awesome man. And they were really receptive, and a guy called Ed Vasey, or now he's called Lord Vasey, who was at the time the Minister of Culture. They really they understood that this was about human interaction, not about different aspects. So they were very forward thinking as a government. So in January 2016, I got a letter from the business secretary, who was Sajid Javid at the time, and we formed it a few months later. So it's a not-for-profit independent association. And then over time, we've just grown. So we've got 10 full-time staff, a board of 14. We've got 42 game advisors, which basically is an advisor for each of the different esports. And then we've got about 500 volunteers. And we're very blessed and humbled by everyone's love for esports and wanting to create a good structure for it to be played within the UK.
Okay. And the aim of the association is to promote awareness of esports and.
Yeah, so kind of a few core pillars. One, I was a bit annoyed when I dug into it, is how we don't really have enough British heroes of esports players. There's one in particular, historically, a guy called Ryan Hart, who's on our board, who's a brilliant esports player. He plays fighter games, Street Fighter and Smash, and he'd won more esports competition than anyone else. I think he got a Guinness Book of Records or a few, but he wasn't a well-known name. Whereas, if you go globally, there's names like Faker, who's kind of like a legend player. So I was a bit concerned, why don't we have British talent that are on a global level or high global level? So one of my aims was to start like a kind of an amateur sports organization, start at the beginning and start encouraging, a balanced life, promoting certain values, obviously with these esports, but also, there's a career pathway, and why should people in America or Brazil or Korea or China be winning all this prize money? Why shouldn't it be British players?
The ethos of esports, I think, has changed over the years now, and there's very much a sort of promoting health and things like that amongst players. Is that important to you?
In the UK, there's kind of, depending on the stats, and it's quite hard to get data. But let's say there's 3 to 4 million playing esports every day. There's around 100 professionals, right? But if you're in a professional team, and I'm involved with I'm a small shareholder of the London Royal Ravens, which is the UK's Call of Duty League franchise. Yeah. That's a team of 5 players, but around those 5 players, you've got a coach, you've got an analyst, you've got a nutritionist. To be able to physically concentrate for that period, you need to have physical strength, core, your dexterity. You need to make sure you're incredibly focused. So, one thing that is interesting from the sports world is, these guys advocate being healthy and a balanced life. And it's good, if you're physically fitter or in a better mental health, you're going to become a better gamer. And I think, even though some people don't want to hear it that way, that's the truth. So what's great is we've got an industry of kind of people at the top promoting, the physically fitter that you are and the better your mental health are, you're going to become a better gamer.
Absolutely, yeah. And you mentioned the London Royal Ravens then. How did you become involved with them?
So but to get very granular, so Activision was basically selling some franchise slots globally, and we knew that there was going to be 12. When we kind of got into it, there's a guy on my board called Mike Odell, Odie, who's kind of a legend esports manager. He's had he founded Dignitas. He's coached more esports pros than anyone in the world. And Odie and I were chatting August last year about, surely there's got to be a Call of Duty franchise in the UK. And we, thankfully, via Odie, met Rec Global, who are our partners. So they own the lion's share of the team. And we managed to go to Activision and say, look, with our skill sets of us, Odie and Rec Global, we're going to really create a great British team. And the whole team, obviously, were British players. And we ended up coming 4th in the first season of CDL, which was really exciting. And, like watching any kind of pro team, you had your ups and downs, but, we made it to the championship final weekend, which was brilliant.
How is the esports scene shaping up in the UK as a whole?
Yeah, we've got a lot to go. We've got a long way to go. And I think, there is a caution from brands in the UK, and I think it's, personally, I think one of the main reasons is that if you're a brand or sponsorship manager, it's very easy to work out when things are happening in sport. So we know when, ignoring COVID times, we know when Wimbledon is, we know when the Premier League matches is, we know when the Euros are. Sport is very structured. Esports isn't structured. It's very hard to know what's happening next year. So if you're a brand manager and you're doing your budgets at the end of Q4 of each year, what are you doing? Are you leaving a little fund in a pot to go, right, when there's an esports opportunity, I'm going to jump on it? And I think we need to educate the esports industry to say, look, these brands probably do want to get involved in esports, but if they're doing their budgets ahead of time and doing their activation planning ahead of time, it'd be really important to know when your finals are going to be or when the next round's been. And obviously COVID has thrown a spanner in the works, and they're great publishers like Activision Blizzard and Riot who were setting the structure, but obviously that structure went out the window when we couldn't have live events this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And on a global level, where are the hotspots and how do you see that developing?
Yeah, so America obviously is leading the way, I would say, in the sense of infrastructure. So they, if you take the Overwatch World League, OWL, they're 20 team franchises. If you take the CDL, there's 12 team franchises. The majority are in America, and what they've done is they're an extension of existing sports franchises. So there's a few guys that own NBA teams, there's a few guys that obviously NFL teams and baseball teams. And it makes sense because it's an extension of their brand, albeit with different names for each title. So there, if you take Dallas, they've built an incredible team base there, Complexity Gaming. In Arlington, Texas, they've also built a dedicated venue, which you guys probably talking about. I went to the opening of that event with Face It, which was just amazing to see what they've done.
Yeah.
And then you've got other teams coming out now in Europe. But you need money for that, and we need sponsorship for that, and we need brands for that. So it will come, but I'd say if you look at yeah, from a venue point of view and what they're doing, I'd say America, at the moment, it is kind of on point.
Do you see more bespoke, large arenas opening for esports, or do you think there'll be sort of spaces adapted to play esports in?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and what you need to understand is who owns the content. So you might build an amazing venue or an arena, but if you don't have the license to put on esports events, you're not going to be able to put on the events. And this is what I say with caution to a lot of people who, when the buzz happened, and I'm sure your event will be talking about this, is, for example, we own the Call of Duty franchise for the UK, and we, under our territory, control any Call of Duty commercial tournament. So they have to come to us for that. So if we don't want it to happen anywhere else but in London, or we don't want to have, it's down to us to decide that. So it's going to be the same for the Overwatch team. So if you get publishers, and it's a brilliant strategy of basically giving territories away, and then it's up to you to build up the fan base and control the ecosystem within your territory. If that person isn't using your venue, you're never going to have that title, whatever you think you're going to have. So what's smart is happening in America is people that own an Overwatch franchise and a Call of Duty franchise are coming together, and then they're going to have, when obviously post-COVID, they're going to have the opportunity of having regular home series, as they call it, in their venue. The problem is there aren't that many at the moment. So I think, what would I like to see from a London point of view is, if we, as the Royal Ravens and Spitfire got together and EXO got together, then it makes things viable. But you're not going to have, hundreds of these venues globally. You're going to have specific ones, but it's all about who controls the content is probably more important than if you've got a venue.
Right, okay. And what sort of venues have you used to stage your tournaments?
Yeah, so in February we were in the Copper Box. Okay. So that was great. I think we were the last or the biggest esports event this year, because obviously, unfortunately, COVID came in. We were going to have another event in June, and that obviously got postponed. And the esports industry in the UK uses Wembley Arena and Birmingham Arena Birmingham, and it's also used the O2, but not for some events as well. So again, because each publisher has its own kind of set rules, some will use different venues to that. But at the moment, the biggest esports event I think we had was Face It in 2018, which was a Call of Duty tournament in Wembley Arena. It was over 3 days, and they sold out every day. It was 10,000 people a day. It was 30,000 people, and it was awesome. Yeah.
And what are the other popular sort of European destinations for esports? I believe Poland's quite...
so there's a fantastic tournament called the Intel Extreme Masters, which ESL are involved with in Katowice in Poland, which has been going probably 6-7 years now. I've been to that. It's a great event, and that's around CSGO, and they've added a couple of titles. And then in Germany, Cologne 1 is another event. So, Germany, Poland, have always been pretty consistent. And then other countries sort of dabbled in it. But as I say, I think it was 3 years ago or 2 years ago, there were 3-4 events in the UK, but we've never had more than that. So we've had a CSGO tournament, a Rocket League tournament at the Copper Box, and then Dota 2 has been the last 2 years, apart from this year, up at Birmingham.
You touched on COVID a couple of minutes ago. Do you think it's going to have what sort of long-term knock-on effect do you think it will have on the esports market?
Well, first of all, it's been hugely successful for esports and gaming, because it's made, especially those that were missing out on sports, who were missing out on the socialization and being competitive, just people's attitude to esports has changed, and understanding it, or a bit more understanding it being more mainstream. I think for next year, it's going to have a serious negative impact on physical esports events, because why take the risk of organizing something if you've got to cancel it?
Yeah.
If you take CDL, they did a brilliant job of moving from physical events to virtual events, and they did a great job. And I must compliment Johanna, who's the commissioner there, and all the team at Activision. So at the moment there is a concept which I don't think I can reveal, of reducing what they're going to do next year and how they're going to position it. But they've got to protect, the fan base, and that, these tournaments keep going. So personally, I think next year is going to be less physical esports events. But obviously, once we get the vaccine for COVID and everyone's allowed out again, I'm sure it'll build up. But as an industry in the UK, we've been doing a lot of our tournaments, switching them to from being in physical schools to being online. So we've seen a really good uplift in a positive way in the UK, but obviously we're not using physical venues at the moment.
No, and lockdown has. We've seen a lot of sort of motor tournaments and FIFA and things like that. So it's it has, as you say, in a way, raised the profile of esports.
Yeah, obviously, F1 and FIFA aren't really the top tier esports. So I think FIFA 20 sold 20 million copies or 25 million copies. You got a game like League of Legends, 100 million people playing, or Fortnite, 350 million people playing. Yeah. So, and COD, Call of Duty. So I think, there's been some great stuff done by the sports industry, and what I'd call as some of those sports video games are more virtual sports, like Swift is an extension of cycling as opposed to being an esport. And the work that we do as British Esports with the IOC is about kind of navigating that. And all we want to do is encourage happy and healthy people. We want to promote a balanced life. And I think for me, around esports is, we're not taking away from sports, but we're taking away from passive media. So someone used the term the other day, which I really like, is that esports is an active media. You're engaged, it's a two-way process. So, I'm always quoted saying, at night when children can't play sport in the UK because it's dark or safety reasons, would I want them to be watching TV or being on social media or having fun and developing their strategy and leadership skills playing esports? Obviously, it's going to be esports.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the IOC, so esports is coming to the Olympics. How's that going to manifest itself?
Well, yeah, so what was going to happen at Tokyo 2020 is Intel were going to do an esports event around Rocket League and Street Fighter. So it wasn't an official IOC event. And I don't think we're going to see for a while esports as a medal event, but you'll see some esports activity around that. But what also has happened since December is the formation of the Global Esports Federation, which is the new international federation which is working with the IOC and with a lot of stakeholders in the industry. And I think you'll see an annual event happening through the Global Esports Games. So I think you'll see activity at esports, and I think you'll see an extension of, like, for example, virtual cycling and things like that.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Chester? Or
yeah, I think your summit's really exciting, and I think it's people to understand, just be aware of what you can and can't do in esports. And I think it's very important to have experts that that you talk to, because there's a lot of people there who say they're esports, but there aren't that many who actually are in esports.